Okay, Fantastic Four. How bad is this? What the fuck is happening? We're over with Luis Fernando says the Fantastic Four crosses the 400 million mark and beats Thunderbolts. 382.4, Captain America 415 runs at the global box office after Fantastic Four grossed 17.5 on its third weekend overseas versus 15.7 for Thunderbolts, 18.8 for Captain America, and 20.7 for Superman. A harsh 55.8% drop for a 203 million international coom. Allied to 230.4 coom in the U.S. Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby with a $200 million production tag, not including marketing, hitting a 434.2 global coom. I like that word coom, and so does Luis, man. He likes that word. 450 million coming next week. 500 million plus, which seemed a lock after its opening, now becoming a question mark. If legs don't improve from now onwards, one of the most insane cases of global front-loadedness I've seen post-COVID, with much weaker legs than expected both in the U.S. overseas, now eyeing a 490, 510 global run. Okay, so here's the deal. Not great, but honestly, not a total disaster. I mean, it kind of depends on how you're looking at it, right? I think there's enough context to explain this. I think there's enough to suggest that this isn't just the movie. This is fatigue. This is brand damage. This is the theatrical experience itself going away a bit. This is front-loaded movies. There's a lot of stuff that's going on here. I think the main thing that's making this look so bad is Superman. Man, Superman, I gotta say, it's such a funny world that we live in, because if Superman did not have Fantastic Four, I think Superman ultimately would look way worse. Like, those international numbers for Superman are terrible. And the same could be said for Fantastic Four. Without those numbers, I truly think Superman looks way worse if it were not for all of the Marvel movies doing worse, and especially Fantastic Four doing worse. Here's a couple of like interesting things. If you really drill down on the details and the numbers here. So Superman is doing really well domestically, right? Its domestic numbers are very, very strong. It's looking like 330 right now. I think it'll get to 360 domestic all day. Now that is interesting. Now, when you compare that to Lilo and Stitch and Minecraft, which are the two really big hit movies, the two biggest movies this year, you're looking at around 420 domestic. So that's only about 60 million away from the upper echelon of the industry domestically right here for Superman. That looks really good in a vacuum. You take a step back, though, and you look at how bad its international numbers are. Pretty rough, but the domestic numbers for Superman are just really strong. And I think the thing you would have to admit, just looking at Fantastic Four and looking at Superman is holding better with people that continue to go to the movies, people that are still really engaged with the comic book movie genre. So I would say the more hardcore fans, Superman has been able to tap in to that hardcore fan base just a little bit more effectively than Fantastic Four. Maybe that's a fatigue factor. Maybe that's like Superman is fresher, more new. Maybe Superman is just a more accessible movie. You know, I love the Fantastic Four, but as many of you guys have pointed out over the past couple of weeks, it's kind of like a movie for dads. You know what I mean? It is. It's kind of like a dad movie, to be honest with you. And I don't think kids really fuck with it. I don't think people that don't have kids really fuck with it. I think some people wanted way more spectacle, way more shit, way more build into Doomsday. It just seems like the whole genre is suffering. But if you really take your microscope and you focus down on Fantastic Four, and especially looking at what's going on with Superman, it's just very clear that there's damage there, you know? So the win for Superman is marginal, but it feels like a win because there's enough data to support that it's hanging on better than the big-time Marvel brand that has been the crown jewel of Hollywood for years and years and years, right? It's pretty wild. Now, Fantastic Four domestically probably gets to 300 million total. I think that's a bit in flux, but around 300 million. That is 60 million less than where Superman will end up domestically. It's about 120 million less than where the biggest movies of the year so far will end up. Okay? What's interesting about that is that it actually creates this really weird tier system where, like, you look at Deadpool and Wolverine, right? And this is where it gets kind of crazy. You look at Deadpool and Wolverine, 636 million domestic, 700 million worldwide. So if you compare, like, it's all a game of comparisons. And I think Hollywood's trying to figure out, like, what is the new normal? Where are these ranges? What is possible, et cetera, et cetera. Superman is going to operate 60 million less than the two biggest movies this year domestically. But even that is like 200 million less than what it was just last year. So what is happening? You know what I mean? And the international thing, that's like a completely different thing. Maybe that is just not coming back. Not really sure. But I think for the sake of the industry, for the sake of the comic book movie genre, these companies need to think about this and try to adjust it. But it seems like you've got Deadpool and Wolverine and some other movies like, Spider-Man No Way Home, Avatar 2. Some of these movies that just crushed at this crazy abnormal level. But just when you look at this year, all the movies are doing way less than that. But Superman is hanging close to the top of the heap, whereas Fantastic Four and Marvel in general has kind of moved to the middle of the pack. But it's in the middle of a pack of a really diminished industry, right? So basically, man, it just kind of depends on what you think and what you want to say. The numbers are not great, and there's undeniable brand damage. I think there's undeniable fatigue within the comic book movie genre. I think that's pretty obvious, but I think there's also life signs. Superman and Fantastic Four operating much better than the other two would indicate, those characters are stronger. People will show up more when it seems like a bigger deal. The real factors here, the real things that should make them nervous. Number one, international. Number two, women. Women are not really fucking with these movies. And that's crazy because, Marvel has done so much over the past 3 to 4 years to try to appeal to, a female audience. And they lost them. It just seems like you lost them. They didn't even show up for the Marvels. You know what I mean? But, you really lost them, it seems like. And then I would say, it's spectacle. Big characters and spectacle. So, look. In a sense, what is boring about this conversation is that we have kind of said all that needs to be said. It's all operating within the ballpark that we thought. It all got adjusted down after Captain America, after Thunderbolts, after Daredevil. It is low. The interest is low. There's fatigue. There's brand damage. And really, there's no way to know what this means for next year. It is literally a year away. I think that's a great break. I think they do need to do spectacle more. And next year, it seems like Marvel's doing it. I mean, Marvel has Spider-Man, which we're going to talk about in a second here. It looks fucking awesome. People are very excited about it. It seems like it's going to be spectacle. Hulk, tons of villains, Gwen Stacy, Punisher, bro, they're going for it. So that seems like spectacle. Doomsday is probably as spectacly as you can get. It will heavily focus on the Fantastic Four characters, the Thunderbolts characters, the Avengers characters. But we're about to talk about Chris Evans in a little bit, dude. Chris Evans and Doomsday, the rumors are nuts. So it's going to be big, and I think it'll get a lot of attention. But the thing that's kind of fucking boring about it is dude, we basically just had the same conversation we've been having. All Fantastic Four is showing is that a lot of people that thought this would happen were right. Look, I made the bet with Brandon Davis. I tried to hold really strong on believing in Fantastic Four, and maybe I hyped myself up into thinking that it could break the mold. I think the movie's incredible. I really like it, so maybe that kind of influenced me in week one to be like, yo, let's go. But really, after Daredevil Born Again, none of this shocks me, dude. Like, none of this shocks me. I think we're pretty much in the basement. I think this is like as bad as it gets. This is as low as it gets. And I do think it's going to get better, but it might not. We'll see. You know, like we'll get into next year. We got Supergirl, we got Spider-Man, you got Clayface, and you got Doomsday, man. We'll see. But yes, Fantastic Four operating lower than expected. And I think all it is to me is the little dot at the end of the exclamation point. A lot of what we've been talking about seems to be spot on. The fatigue is there. It's downtrending. The break is needed. They need new ideas. They need freshness. And they need to go for it. They need spectacle. So that is the report as far as the box office for Fantastic Four, Superman, etc. What do you guys think? What are your thoughts, comments? Anybody have any questions? Are you freaking out? Is it time? Is it Jover? Are we freaking out over here? Shalami Leaner, damn, thank you for the 20 spot, man. That's very generous. Says, I saw F4 again with my dad and brother. They were both normies, and my dad loved it. While my brother, who is younger, hated it. I agree with you that younger people really don't like it. Yep. Yeah, and I think you'd have to ask the question, like, is that a Kevin Feige thing? Like, was this a Shackman idea? Was this a Feige idea? Is this just a symptom of a problem at Marvel where they are just out of touch with the youth? You know, and one of the things that's kind of crazy about this is, so recently Feige confirmed that Jake Schreier is doing the X-Men movie. Do you guys remember what he said when he confirmed it? He said that Jake Schreier had his finger on the pulse of what the youth were into. And I'm like, what? like how so? Kevin, please, explain more, because I don't really see it. But also it kind of indicates that that's something they're thinking about, right? And they're like, yo, we need to get the youths, which, you know, is fair. Probably fair. My dad liked F4 and said he felt like it had stakes. Yeah. Marvel wastes a lot of money on doing these movies. At this rate, how many actors in Doomsday? The movie will probably cost $750 million, and will need a $1.5 billion to break even. Yeah, it's going to be a very expensive endeavor for sure. Yeah, I don't know. I think for certain movies, certain projects, like, the money doesn't matter as much. I think when it comes to Doomsday and Secret Wars, Marvel's kind of fighting for their permanent space in the zeitgeist. So I say fire all the missiles, use all the money. They should probably spend more. The box office isn't awful for these films. The budgets are just far too high for the lower relevance the movies have. Yeah, I mean, I've heard that argument a lot, and I think the film industry is trying to cope with that, figure it out. We heard this report that Fantastic Four had made $170 million from brand deals or some shit like that. That shit never used to get reported. The only reason it's getting reported now is everybody wants to look like they're winning, right? And as the box office diminish, box office getting real low. The companies are finding other ways to provide social proof for the film. So it's interesting. Look, man, right now things are changing, brother. There's a lot of context. Marvel has the unfortunate circumstance of being the biggest game in town at a time when the industry that they had dominated was changing. They are, in some ways, being unfairly treated because of the success and the place that they held in pop culture for so long. But at the same time, that's just what happens, man. In order to fall off, you must have been on top. And we see a lot of people, artists, companies, fall off. It just happens. It is on them to turn it around, and they obviously have their strategies and things that they're trying. And we're kind of seeing with Fantastic Four a little bit of what does that look like in the actual economics, in the actual numbers? What does that look like, Do you think Superman still has a chance of beating Man of Steel? I mean, technically, maybe. The problem is it's only getting a 45-day digital window. And honestly, though, that's not as much. Like, you say that and you're like, oh, they shouldn't do that. But it's also the case that consumers have just been kind of trained on that. So it's not like Warner Brothers is making a bad call. That's just what the industry has become. So I don't know. I don't think so. It's holding better than Fantastic Four. Like, there's no doubt about that. But it's still like Superman is still underperforming, I feel. But it just looks better because Marvel's underperforming, you know? So, look, the good news for fans is that they're not going to cancel Doomsday. They're not going to cancel Supergirl. They're not going to cancel the next James Gunn thing. You know, they're not going to cancel X-Men. This shit isn't going away. Now, I know for many of us, like myself included, I want to win. Like, I want to get back on top. Like, I want to be able to say, like, oh, shit, Marvel's back making billion-dollar movies and crushing it again. At the same time, though, there's a part of me that's like, well, it's actually more important that I just enjoy it all, and I'm a fan. And, like, the last two movies were bangers, dude. Like, I love Thunderbolts. I love Fantastic Four. So, as a fan, I'm excited for what comes next. I think we're living through some of the damage that's being sort of left over from all the bad shit over the last couple of years. It's like, to earn trust back takes a lot of time. You know, if you've ever been betrayed by somebody or somebody lied to you or somebody let you down, like, man, it's just really tough. Like, there's going to be a time where they're going to be doing everything right and you're just not going to trust them. And you're not going to trust them because of the past. Like, that happens. That's going to be a thing. And I think that's what Marvel's living through right now. Whether or not they recover, that's yet to be seen. Maybe they adjust their strategies. And we'll see. We'll cover it as it comes, man. I mean, nothing's really in danger here. Like, you might say, like, okay, comic book movies might be going away, but not really. Like, at the most, you'll see, like, 3 to 4 a year, smaller budgets, and they'll all probably do between 3 to 600 million. That's still a massive part of culture. That's still like a huge fucking thing. And I think you'll still occasionally have ones that pop off, maybe some that underperform. The question becomes really, and maybe we should just get into the Kevin Feige stuff. I think the question is more, how does Marvel change? Not if Marvel should or if they will. It's more the question of how should they change, because they absolutely need to, and they always needed to. You always need to change. You always need to adapt. You always need to adjust. We've seen them do that. You know, we've seen them adapt, adjust, change a little bit over time, but it's so clear that more is needed, right? And so that takes us into the next part of the discussion here, okay?